Thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony today. My deepest condolences go to the family members and the fellow sailors of the men and women who were killed on both the Fitzgerald and the McCain. It's hard to imagine, no matter what your investigations ultimately prove, that at least some part of the fault will not lie with Congress and the steady erosion of budgetary support that we have provided for the United States Navy and the entire military. We've heard again this morning from both sides of our aisle complaints about the Budget Control Act of 2011 and specifically the automatic spending cuts known as sequestration. Well, we had a perfect chance to finally end those over the last week on the floor of the Senate. I offered an amendment, as Chairman McCain said, that would have eliminated those automatic spending cuts, not only on defense, but on domestic spending as well. It's no secret that I think many of those domestic programs could tighten their belt a little bit, but I knew that we needed a bipartisan solution. I think every member of this committee has called for that at one point or another to include every Democrat. But we didn't even have a vote on the amendment because Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, wanted more leverage in budget negotiations later this year. And the Democrats in his caucus went along with him. So their complaints about sequestration fall somewhat on deaf ears. Now, they will say that our amendment didn't also address the so-called mandatory sequester. But let me point out first that that doesn't affect a single dime of benefits to Social Security or Medicare or veterans benefits. And moreover, virtually every one of them has voted at least twice to extend the automatic sequester into the future when they did not seem that troubled by it. Politics prevailed here. Now, let me turn to the state of your sailors' training. Admiral Richardson, in the GAO report, there are indications that in the forward deployed naval forces, you have sailors who have not achieved mission-critical certifications on things like seamanship, air warfare, ballistic missile defense, cryptography, electronic warfare, intelligence strike warfare, cruise missile tactical qualification, naval surface fire support, surface warfare, undersea warfare, and visual board search and seizure. Without trying to assess whether these failures or these lack of certifications were behind the incidents with the Fitzgerald and the McCain, I assume that's something that you seek to address rapidly?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And to help the layman understand, these certifications would be akin in the Army or the Marine Corps to basic rifle qualifications, is that right?
Senator, some of them are. So there's sort of a two tiers to those certifications that you just described, and depending upon which one you named, it would break out into some are just fundamental ship handling, navigation, safety, how to operate your ship safely at sea, the fundamentals, if you will, and then some of them are much more higher-end, sophisticated warfighting or requirements.
The Navy is obviously a forward deployed force that is always operating, even if it's not in an active zone of conflict. Whereas, say, the Marine Corps or the Army deploys to places like Iraq and Afghanistan and then trains at places like Camp Lejeune and Fort Campbell. Are these certifications things that can occur on board, or do they have to be off of a deployment cycle and occur back at their bases?
They can occur within that, particularly for the forward deployed naval forces. They can occur in the course of maintaining yourself operational. You just have to dedicate the time to do the training and get the team on board to do the certification.
Thank you. We've also spoken some about discipline and accountability for officers, to include some petty officers who were found at fault. What is the status, if any, of potential awards of medals for those sailors who saved the lives of their fellow sailors?
Sir, I'll have to get back to you on the specifics, but you're right. There was definitely heroic acts on both of those. I can get that back to you. It's certainly our intent to recognize heroism where it was seen.
I hope so. As you state in your written testimony, what the Navy does is inherently dangerous. I'd say that of all the armed forces, even when they're not in an active conflict in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, and certainly great heroism was displayed. One final question I want to ask the Secretary and the Chief. In studying the causes of these incidents, what steps, if any, has the Navy and the intelligence community taken to rule out the possibility of a deliberate act of a hostile power?
Senator, it's all underway in the reports, in what we call the ongoing reports, the technical reports that are going on right now. You heard the CNO speak earlier that Admiral Tai and her group in the 10th Fleet on the cyber side are doing their reviews there. Intelligence is also looking at it, so it is being discussed.
Thank you. Anything to add, Admiral Richardson?
No, sir, absolutely. No stone unturned. We're looking at everything.
Thank you.